What's up, Internet? This is Rambling Josh, and you're watching another episode of Let's Play Fire Emblem. Today we continue our story with Chapter 1, Footsteps of Fate. So we got a little bit of a story interlude here. Didn't I set this to max speed? Oh, whatever. Bulgar. That's an odd name for a town. Well, I guess that's not that surprising. Now, one of the things that I want to mention in this episode is that most characters in Fire Emblem fall under a certain archetype. And basically, there are a lot of characters throughout the Fire Emblem series. I think the count is something over like 400 playable characters overall. And as you might expect, it's kind of hard to come up with new characters throughout that. So most characters, like I said, in this series follow a certain archetype. Almost all of them, in fact. So one of the things I'm going to be doing throughout this LP is trying to kind of point out the archetype that each character falls under, because all of them, the fans of the series like to keep track of these archetypes, and they named them after the characters that originated the archetypes, usually a character from the first Fire Emblem game. And I'll touch on that a little bit more after this scene. Lycia, huh? Passion and fire. So I guess we didn't follow Lynn. We're just gonna sit here and watch these two talk it out. Well, he's certainly a character. Why did you come back? Huh? How could that be? Well, she certainly seems kind of short-tempered. How is she your mission? What's that even supposed to mean? Being pursued. Oh, well, he's significantly uglier than both of those knights. But her name is Lynn, not Lindis. Why does everyone always want me dead? Huh? What? Oh, hi there. Yes, those are those guys you talked to 5 seconds ago. I mean, you could. How do you even know that I'm capable of commanding you? Okay, so we're probably gonna get a bit of a short tutorial here. Yeah. Now, before I actually start off with this mission, I want to talk a little bit more about archetypes. So basically, here's some examples. Lynn follows the Nina archetype. Nina is a character from the first Fire Emblem game, and the archetype is basically a female character who is the last of her race, so to speak, or something along those lines. There are some exceptions that deviate a little bit from that to some degree. Like, they might not be literally the last of their race, but they might be like the last hope of their race or some such. But anyways, the point is they're kind of the last of their bloodline, and they have to be rescued by someone, and they kind of get this like call to action kind of thing. So Lynn follows the Nina archetype. Meanwhile, these two, Kent and Sane, follow one of the most common and most well-known archetypes in the series, the Cain and Abel archetype. So I want to say every Fire Emblem game, but maybe not every one of them, has a pair of Cavaliers, or mounted people, who, one being red, one being green, who are kind of like a pair. They're not always red and green, there's a couple exceptions to that as well, but there's exceptions to all of the rules anyways. Usually, the red one is... Or how's it go? No, it's usually the... I'm trying to think. I always get the two mixed up. I know that the red one is supposed to be Cain, and the green one is supposed to be Abel, in terms of, like, what archetype they follow. And Cain is supposed to be a very kind of serious... No, it's the other way around. The red one, Cain, is supposed to be a very kind of carefree character with who tends to have a very high physical, like offensive output. They can do a lot of damage. Whereas the green one, Abel, is a lot more serious and has a bit more defensive build. They focus on like defense and speed and skill and stuff like that. But Kent and Sane are a little bit different. They basically change around the personality. Like, their personality and their stat growths are opposite to their color. So Kent is red, but he is a Abel. Whereas Sane is red, or green. Sorry. Sane is green, but he's a Cain. Kent is red, but he is an Abel. Hopefully that made some sense. Anyways. In this mission, we are introduced to the weapon triangle. So Sane has an iron lance, and you'll see that next to his lance there's a little arrow down, whereas the bandit next to his iron axe has a little arrow up. And that's because different weapons have advantages over other types. And in truth, the difference is kind of small. It doesn't affect the damage you deal at all, it only affects the hit chance. So Sane does not have a sword, and Kent is obviously berating him. So, come on Kent, your turn. So anyways, as this text box points out, basically, swords beat axes, axes beat spears, and spears beat swords. That's how the triangle works. So let me select my spear? No, it doesn't. But anyways, you can see that with our sword we have a 100% hit chance, and the bandit has a 46% hit chance, which is fairly low. And a lot of that is because of the fact that our sword has the advantage. It doesn't affect your damage at all, so it's not like a straight up X beats Y, like all the time. It's just, it gives you a bit of a small advantage. And in the early stages of the game here, that advantage can actually count for a lot. Because, as I mentioned in the previous episode, our only method of healing is with vulneraries, which are limited. So it's pretty important to increase your survivability by playing with the weapon triangle. Okay, so actually this is a bit of a good example of another thing here. Our Cavaliers are mounted, but these forest tiles, I think Cavaliers are supposed to have 6 movement, but the Cavaliers, they can't go through the forest as effectively as they can the open plain. But anyways, this battle is meant to explain something else. So you notice that Kent had a 100% hit chance with the sword, and Sane only has 87. And that's because this bandit is standing in a forest. And standing on certain tiles with different will give you different environmental effects. So in particular, I think forests only give you 10% avoidance. Some amount of the differential between Kent and Sane's hit chance can be determined by their stats, but the forest has a little bit of an effect as well. So let's see if I can demonstrate this a little bit. So you can, okay, in the bottom you can see the forest actually gives 20% avoidance, and 1 defense, so all damage is decreased by 1 if you're standing in the forest. Now, if we go to the mountain, they have a 30% avoidance effect. And Kane here has, Kent has 6 skill, which helps determine the unit's hit percentage, whereas Sane only has 4. So, anyways, unfortunately you have to use Kent for this if you are not playing on hard mode. And the reason I say that's unfortunate, I guess I should explain that now as well, is the way this game works is you just go from one chapter to another. It's basically just a string of fights separated out by battles. Oh, I kind of went through that. Basically, we just want to sit on the forest because of the environmental advantage. But anyways, the point I was getting at is that because you only have a finite number of battles that you can fight, it's actually very important to plan out which characters you want to use and which you do not. Oh yeah. They really don't want you using Sane much in this battle. So this is just an explanation of the trade mechanic, which is pretty simple. But the point I was getting at here is that you have to kind of choose who you want to use and who you don't want to use, because there's a finite number of characters you can use. You get on your team, I want to say probably in the vicinity of about 30 to 35 characters, but in each battle you usually can't use more than about 12. So this works about the same way you would expect. Choose the item, give it to the other person, pretty simple. But anyways, the reason I bring up the whole use who you want thing, or choose who you want to use, is because there's a finite amount of experience. You have to... So the best way to be successful is to be very selective about who you give that experience to. So if you're not going to end up using a character, you don't want them taking up the experience that could go to someone who is going to be used long term. And the reason I mention that is because typically you only want to have one character of a single type. You want to increase the diversity in your group as much as you can, because it's just more useful than having multiples of the same thing. So typically you want to choose either Kent or Sane, and you only want to use one of them. There's no reason you can't use them both, but obviously, like I said, you typically don't want to use more than one of the same type. And in my case, I would prefer to use Sane. So as I spoke a little bit earlier about their the way their stats work, and typically Kent has a more defensive build and a little bit more speed, and Sane is more of a damage dealer. And to me, that is more attractive, because ultimately, in the long term, most characters, their speed is usually good enough no matter who they are. And even when it comes to things like the weapon triangle, you can usually kind of brute force your way through a lot of stuff. And it's a lot easier to do said brute forcing if you have the strength to back it up. And strength is Sane's strong point. He is a damage dealer through and through. So, I'm trying to get as much use out of Sane here as I can. Let's see here. If I bring Lyn up, that's what I think I'm going to do. So, Lyn's going to attack this guy twice. At this point, the battle has stopped being predetermined, so it's not scripted any further. Actually, pretty good level ups on Lyn so far. She's gotten strength ups both times she's leveled, which is pretty good, because Lyn's biggest weakness is always that she's low on strength. She's a fast character, but she's not an especially strong one. So the more strength she gets, it can drastically affect how good she is long term. So it's starting off pretty good so far. So she weakened this guy up, and Sane can kill him. And who you have killing the character is pretty important too, because killing a character gives significantly more experience than just hitting them. So that gave Sane almost an entire level. And the most experience you can get from one action is 100. And I think he probably got about 80 from that, so that's pretty good. Get a little, not an animated scene, but a special fancy picture. Ah yes, their story. I thought Lycia was in the southeast. Oh well. Madeline? That sounds a lot like someone we know. Suddenly, huh? Well, there's no one else for her to live with. Oh, really? It's funny how that always seems to be the case. Really? Well, yeah, I mean, I guess they just said so. So... yes, he did. So I guess the bad guys know she exists as well. Lord Lundgren, huh? Looks like we got a little bit of a political power struggle here. Well, that's unfortunate. It's not like she's got anything else to do. I mean, she kind of just decided she was going to go on an adventure and do something, so I guess it might as well be this, right? It's no big deal. Well, it's not like I have much choice. And that is the end of that chapter. So, I will see you on the next episode of Let's Play Fire Emblem. Catch you later.